Why is it that when we see a beautiful flower, our first instinct is to pluck it? Why is it that when we hear a bird singing a lovely tune, we want to trap it in a cage? And why is it that when we love someone, we want to bind them to our lives with strings of control? We hold a mistaken belief that has taken deep root in our subconscious. To love something, we must possess it. We confuse happiness with ownership. But you know, there are beauties that only exist when they are free. There are things that are most brilliant when we admire them from a distance, and will vanish the very moment our hands touch them. Tonight, let me take you to the shores of Mirror Lake, where the water is as still as a sheet of paper and the moonlight shines like a true pearl. There lived a man named Old Hao. He was not a madman. He was a master. He believed that with his supreme skills, he could catch the one thing no one had ever touched: the moon. Old Hao's story is not just a tale about fishing. It is a story about the pain of attachment and the sweet relief of learning how to let go. Old Hao was a living legend of the Van Che fishing village. His entire life was a collection of trophies. At 20, he caught a tiger shark with his bare hands. At 40, he sailed a boat alone through the eye of a storm. His house was adorned with the jaws of giant fish, rare shells, and pearls as large as thumbs. Old Hao had everything: fame, money, and respect. But when he turned 60, he felt empty, a terrifying emptiness. He realized he had conquered everything real beneath the water. No fish made his heart race. No wave made him tremble. He craved one last challenge, something impossible. One night, under the August full moon, he sat drinking wine alone on his boat in the middle of Mirror Lake. The water was so flat that one could not distinguish where the sky ended and the water began. And there, right beside the hull of his boat, he saw it, the moon. Not the cold, distant moon high in the sky, but the moon beneath the water. It was huge, perfectly round, radiating a shimmering golden light. It was so close that he felt he could reach down and touch it. It was more beautiful than any pearl he had ever seen. It was alive, sparkling, and full of magic. A crazy thought sparked in Old Hao's mind. Why must I look up at the sky like ordinary men? I am the king of the waters. If it lies beneath the surface, then it belongs to my domain. I will catch it. I will be the first man in the world to own the moon. Old Hao began preparing for the greatest hunt of his life. He did not use a normal net. A normal net was too rough. It would scratch the light. He spent 3 months weaving a special net. He used the silk of water spiders, combined with strands of his own silver hair. The net was so delicate it was almost invisible, yet tougher than any fishing line. The villagers saw him hunched over, weaving away, and asked, "Old Hao, are you planning to catch a godfish? Why such an elaborate net?" Old Hao just smiled mysteriously. "I am going to catch the soul of the night." The next full moon arrived. The sky was clear, without a single cloud. The moon above was blazing, casting a perfect replica down into the depths of the lake. Old Hao rowed his boat out to the center. He rowed very softly. Splash, splash. The oars sliced the water gently so as not to startle the prey. He reached the exact center. He looked down. The prey was lying there, silent, brilliant. It seemed to be waiting for him. It was so bright it illuminated every wrinkle on his weathered face. Old Hao's heart pounded like it did when he was a young man setting sail for the first time. "You are so beautiful," he whispered, his eyes never leaving the spot of light underwater. "You will be my crown. I will bring you home. release you into a crystal tank. Every night I will admire you without having to wait for the full moon." Old Hao stood up. He held the spider silk net in his hands. He took a deep breath, summoning 40 years of experience. Whoosh! The net blossomed like a giant flower, covering the moon beneath the water. The net sank. Old Hao saw clearly that the net had encompassed the golden spot of light. "Got it!" he shouted in joy. He began to pull the rope, but strangely, the net was light. It had no weight of an object, only the weight of water. He hauled the net onto the deck. Water streamed through the mesh. Inside the net, there was nothing, only a few small shrimp jumping about. Old Hao was stunned. He looked down at the water. Because the water had been disturbed by the net, the moon had shattered into thousands of tiny, glittering fragments. It was no longer a round shape. It was a chaos of dancing light. Did it escape? He wondered. Did it dissolve to hide from me? He waited patiently. 10 minutes later, when the water became still again, the fragments reunited. The round moon reappeared, beautiful and proud, as if it had never been touched. "Are you mocking me?" Old Hao growled. "Fine. I have never failed." This time, he didn't use the net. He thought the mesh was too wide, and the light had slipped through. He grabbed a wooden bucket. He gently lowered the bucket, aiming right for the heart of the moon. Splash. He scooped up a bucket full of water, right where the moonlight rained. He chuckled to himself, lifting the bucket onto the deck. He looked inside. The water in the bucket sloshed, but it was pitch black. There was no moon inside, only dark water. He looked back at the lake. The moon was still lying there, laughing at him. Old Hao's madness began to rise. He threw the bucket away. He threw his whole body into the water. He used his large, calloused hands to try and scoop the moonlight. He plunged his hands in, hugging the spot of light. But the moment his fingers touched the surface, the moon shattered again. The more he tried to grab, the more he tried to hold, the more the light ran away, breaking into distorted ripples. "Why? Why can't I catch you?" Old Hao screamed in the middle of the silent night. His voice echoed against the cliffs, sounding tragic and desperate. He thrashed. He slapped the water. He turned the clear lake into a muddy mess. And in that chaos, the moon disappeared completely. Only mud and white foam remained. Old Hao was exhausted. He clung to the side of the boat, breathing heavily, soaked and shivering. He had lost. He had destroyed the very thing he desired. Just then, a small bamboo boat drifted gently by. On the boat was an old Zen master sipping tea. He had been watching Old Hao the entire time. "What are you looking for that disturbs the whole lake so?" the Zen master asked, his voice calm. Old Hao gasped. I want to catch that moon. It is too beautiful. I want to take it home." The Zen master smiled, poured a cup of hot tea, and held it out to him. "The moon is not underwater, my friend. The moon is in the sky." "I know," Old Hao snapped, "but its reflection is here. I want this reflection. It is right within my reach." "Look," the Zen master pointed to the still rippling water. "The more you try to grasp it, the more the image shatters. The more force you use, the more beauty hides." The Zen master took a sip of tea, then continued. "Climb onto your boat. Sit still. Do nothing. Do not try to catch it anymore." Reluctantly, Old Hao climbed back onto his boat. He sat down on the deck, surrendering in helplessness. The space returned to silence. The wind stopped blowing, the waves stopped lapping, The mud slowly settled. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 5 minutes passed. The water surface slowly smoothed out again like a mirror. And behold, from the chaotic fragments, the light began to gather. Bit by bit, the round, perfect golden moon reappeared right beside the boat. It was more beautiful than ever. It was so bright that Old Hao felt dazzled. Old Hao started to reach out his hand out of habit, but he stopped. He remembered the Zen master's words. He pulled his hand back. He just sat there, silently watching. And in that moment of absolute stillness, Old Hao felt a strange happiness. He did not own the moon. It was not in his pocket, nor in his fish tank at home, but it was right here, completely offering its beauty to his eyes. He realized that only when he stopped trying to possess it did the moon truly belong to him in the fullest way. "Master," Old Hao said, trembling, tears rolling down his cheeks. "I understand now. I don't need to take it home, because this lake is its home, and tonight, I am its guest." The Zen master nodded, smiled, and rowed his boat away into the mist. Everything in life is like the moon in the water. Grasp it tight, and it shatters. Let it loose, and it becomes whole. From that night on, the villagers of Van Che saw a change in Old Hao. He sold all his collections of shark jaws and rare pearls. He no longer sailed out to conquer sea monsters. He became a boatman on Mirror Lake. Every full moon night, he rowed tourists, lovers, or those in pain out to the middle of the lake. He would turn off the engine, letting the boat drift freely. When a guest tried to dip their hand into the water to play, he would gently stop them. "Don't touch, just look." "Why?" the guest would ask. Old Hao would smile, the smile of a man who had weathered the storm to find peace. "Because if you touch, you only get wet hands and muddy water. But if you let it be, you get the whole sky in the heart of the lake. Beauty is not something to hold. Beauty is something to feel." Old Hao never caught the moon, but everyone said that he owned the most moonlight in the world, because that moonlight had settled perfectly within his quiet soul. My dear friend, does the story of Old Hao and the moon in the water remind you of anything in your own life? We are all fishermen holding a net. We try to catch a lover and force them to love us the way we want. And then love shatters like disturbed water. We try to catch fame, wealth, and hold on to youth. And the tighter we grasp, the more they slip through our fingers like water, leaving only fatigue and disappointment. We suffer because we think not having it means losing everything. But the philosophy of Mirror Lake teaches us, not possessing is the only way to possess eternally. Look at your children. Do not try to mold them into the shape you want. Let them be themselves, and you will see them shine. Look at your love. Do not control. Trust. Free love is the most beautiful love. Look at moments of happiness. Do not frantically try to capture them with photos or videos to save them. Put the camera down, breathe, and feel it with your heart. Letting go does not mean giving up. Letting go means stopping the act of strangling life. Open your hands, because only when your hands are open can you receive the whole world. Close your fist tight, and you hold nothing but a handful of air. Thank you for listening. Wishing you a peaceful night, and may your soul be as still as Mirror Lake, to perfectly reflect the joys of tomorrow.